We are City of Five Nations podcast. This series, 30 Days of Community Building, has been so much fun. I'm Daniel Shaughnessy, and I'm looking forward to today's conversation with the Community Renewal team. And tomorrow on our show will be two beautiful girls making the splash in our community with their guts and tenaciousness in running their local small businesses. NBA official and owner of Whistle Boutique and Salon, Rachel Milo, and originator, owner, and operator of City of Five Nations Local's favorite upscale restaurant, Cami Ingalls. And of course, her restaurant is Theopolis Social Club. Today, we welcome Community Renewal, and I welcome Brandon Dyer from backstage. And staying back, there are a few more of his Community Renewal team. Welcome, Brandon. How are you, man?
Doing good, hanging in there, given this crazy time, just doing our thing, man. How are you?
Oh, I'm enjoying this. I think this has been such a opportunity for everybody around the world really to reset a little bit, because we've all been forced out of our comfort zones, and it's helping us to reconnect within our own households. How cool is that?
No, it is really good. I mean, we've got 4 kiddos, and so the first few days, I think they thought, "Hey, this is summer break already," but then we begin to sort of settle into a schedule, and really, because of what we're limited in and going out into the community, our kids and us as parents have kind of figured out what's important again, and spending time with our kids, and the way we're able to break our work up and take breaks throughout the day and spend time and go on walks or play games together and things like that. I think our families really benefited from that.
Well, and Brandon, you're a natural at that. I mean, with your time in ministry and your selection to head the community renewal effort throughout our community, and that is such a powerful force that you've taken upon your shoulders. But it takes a man to be able to make that happen, a man or a woman, but an adult who is mature. And so you've got background. I'd like to know a little bit about Brandon Dyer, even before Community Renewal. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm a Shawnee native. I was born and raised here, graduated high school here, and went to OBU. And my wife and I, Lindsay Dyer, of course, she was Lindsay Hadley, but she grew up here too and went to OBU, and we married. And so I spent about 15 years or so in ministry in different places. I spent a few years down in the Dallas area before coming back up here. I taught school a couple of years too, but for me, my life really sort of changed when I was in middle school and had the opportunity. My life was really kind of falling apart, frankly. I mean, family life and things were really bad. And so it was a 19-year-old college kid, an OBU kid in our church, that really took me under his wing and mentored me and helped me see that I was valued, that I mattered, that I was loved, I was cared for. And that relationship and that investment and care for me really altered the trajectory of my life. And so as a result of that, that's what I wanted to pass on to people. I wanted to pass on that same love and care to people that needed it. And so my first outlet for that was in ministry. And I loved it. It was really, I enjoyed that. And taught school for a little while in there too. And then when this community renewal opportunity came along, I thought this is perfect. All of my experience, my education, everything lines up. Who I am. This is the very thing I need to be doing. And unfortunately, it worked out.
Oh man, and you're such a great example of the City of Five Nations stock. There is so much invested over nearly a century now within this community of individuals and families that really care about one another. And it's a bit of irony that you get to walk around now with "we care" across your chest, and like 5,000 "we care" signs from your efforts of as an individual who is born, raised, and rooted here in the City of Five Nations. That speaks a lot about a testimony of community coming together, and a lot about how you now are pushing it forward to a whole new level.
Well, I sure hope so. I think that these characteristics already existed in our community. There are already caring people here. The way our society has shifted over the last 20, 30 years, it really just sort of needed a coordinated effort to remind us who we are. And so that's what we care. It's very important to emphasize the period that's on here. The we care period is critically important for people to understand that that's not an accident. That's there on purpose. And what that means to us, and what I hope it means to our community, is that every single human being matters. It doesn't matter who you are. It's not we care if you look like me or talk like me or vote like me. If you are a human being, you deserve to be loved and cared for. And so we care period is this real sort of a pledge that we're making to our neighbors, that we may not agree on every single thing. We don't have to. I've got opinions, you've got opinions, and they're important to us. But people have to be more important than our opinions if we're ever going to be the kind of world we want, a safe, caring, and connected world. And so we care period means you're my neighbor, you're my coworker, you're my business associate, you're my student at school. I'm going to do my very best to love and care for you. And that is the message that Community Renewal is trying to really just coordinate in our community, because again, it already exists. People already do have this innate ability and capacity to care for other people. Sometimes we just forget who we are, and we forget how important that is to being human. And so Community Renewal and not only our staff of 9, but the entire community that have bought into this pledge is trying to coordinate that effort and remind us who we really are.
Well, and talking about your staff, I have one other thought just back here that you hit me with earlier. So Lindsay is Roger's daughter. Is that correct?
Correct. Roger and Wanda, that's right.
That is so wild. I never knew that. And I just learned something new. I love it. Dr. Hadley, of course, over communications at OBU, lifelong. And how wonderful for them to have their grandchildren just right there in the neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great.
Well, Brandon, I think that you're a great example of the leadership necessary to drive such a successful program forward. And I'm gonna ask, if you don't mind, I'm going to pull out some of your team members from backstage one by one and try to get to know them a little bit more. You cool with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. We'll see you then in just a moment, and we'll pull up Mandy Wells. Now, Mandy and I really don't know each other very well. We've met each other before, but this is part of what community building is all about, isn't it, Mandy? Is stepping into, sometimes positions in which we don't know somebody. We may be a little bit uncomfortable, but we get to know each other just by saying hello. And I want to welcome you to We Are City of Five Nations podcast. And I'd love to know a little bit about you, Mandy. What could you tell us about Mandy Wells, even in a story or just a description that you feel really tells people who you are?
Thank you for having us, and it's great to finally get to talk to you in a different avenue. So, Mandy Wells. So, I've lived in Shawnee. I was born in Shawnee. I didn't stay here my entire life, but eventually, my husband and I came back, and I started working for Community Renewal about 1.5 years ago. Before that, I was a children's pastor, and I absolutely loved and adored the work, and so I worked part-time there, and then I worked part-time with Community Renewal, and the more and more relationships I was able to make in the schools and with the kids and the teachers and the admin, I knew that this was my calling and that it was a different assignment, same calling, still called to love and nurture and care for the families and the kids in the neighborhood.
That is wonderful, and it is such a true calling, and really for all of us to try to come to love one another. Mandy, what size of family did you grow up in? What size of family do you have now? What are some of the fun things that you like to do as a kid, and what are some of the fun things you like to do with your children now?
I came from a family of 4. I have 1 brother, and my family now is my husband, John, and I, and our 1 daughter, Miley. And she is about to graduate from Seminole and go to Mid-America. Fun things. Well, the corona is taking a lot of fun things away for right now. We really enjoy clubs baseball. Absolutely love baseball in general. And we love hanging out with one another and just being together. That's what matters.
That is what matters. And tell me about that love for baseball. When you were a child or growing up, did you get to play softball or baseball, or did you have fond memories with your parents with baseball?
Absolutely. I did play softball. We've just always loved the game. My brother and I, as we were growing up in the 80s, we were, I guess what you would consider latchkey kids because our parents weren't home. And so we come home and we would watch WGN baseball. And so we became Cubs fans. Now, my father is a Cardinal fan. So we just have a mutual love of baseball all the way around.
Well, and that would be a Harry Carey. Do you do the seventh inning stretch song with Harry Carey back in the 80s on WGN?
Always.
What is it? Take me out to the ball game?
Yeah.
That's right. Take me out. Okay. Now we don't have the Harry Carey, like benefit of have been drinking for the whole game. But would you sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" with me?
No, but you can.
Oh, come on. I'll start. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back to the root for the home team. It's a shame if they lose. But it's 1, 2, 3 strikes you're out at the old ball game.
Let's get some run.
Thank you, Mandy Wells.
You are welcome.
I love that. I used to, full confession, I used to watch WGN, but I would have been sitting next to your dad, and it was only when the Cardinals were playing them, and I was born and raised for my first 6 years in St. Louis, Missouri. So I think your shirt is the right color and not the sign behind your head.
Oh, that's okay. Brandon is also a diehard Cardinal fan. Just so you know that.
Well, what can we say?
Right. We have to love everybody.
That's right. That's right. It's part of the we care period.
Yeah.
Well, Mandy, it's great to get to know you a little bit better. And we are now going to pull from backstage one more of the Community Renewal team. And we actually have 2 more back there. But one of my favorite people, and the reason for this is Zoe Lozier. Anytime I come into a room with Zoe Lozier, there's always a smile on her face and her eyes are twinkling. And that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. But Zoe, okay, getting to know you a little bit more as we were backstage hanging out, you tell me that that's not always the case for the office crew, right?
Oh, no. I thought I was going to get to tell happy stories about my childhood.
No.
Yeah,
I
I certainly have a range of emotions, and I think I can actually tie this very well into the happy stories of my childhood. My family has always taught me to be very intentional, and being intentional is part of the mission of Community Renewal, because as we know in our current world, if we don't move towards relationships, we inadvertently are moving away from relationships. And so my part of my character, I am developing a neutral attitude towards it, but part of my character is that I can be very short, and I can be very cold, and I can be very efficient. And sometimes that does not leave a lot of space for emotions and apathy, or not apathy, empathy, different things.
Yeah.
And so I have to be very intentional about the way that I respond to people. And so honestly, talking about my eyes lighting up, like I actually work to make my eyes a little bigger when I see people, so they know that, that I'm glad that they're there.
And I think that that is truth from within you. And maybe it's just the windows to your heart, because you open up to say, hey, I'm going to listen, and I'm going to be intentional about giving this person my attention. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about your family. Why or how did it develop within you these characteristics that you're talking about? Tell us a little bit about how you grew up.
Yeah, I grew up in a very loving home with two parents. So my mother was a therapist and my father was a pastor. And I like to say the good kind of both of those things because that can mean different things to different people. But they are very intentional about how they spend time with people, how they show up for people. They would always encourage me to go to birthday parties when I sometimes wouldn't want to, just because showing up matters. My dad always told me that you have to go to funerals. You have to show up for the people in your life. You have to take time to step away and from what your path may be to be aware of the other people around you.
That's actually a beautiful story, and it talks to how Zoe became Zoe because of your thoughtful nature and the love and compassion that you show, or at least I've been witness to see whenever I've been around you.
It's there, I promise.
Yeah, and we won't talk to the office crew necessarily. Okay. All right. Okay, Zoe, we'll be back with you in just a second, and I'm going to bring on now Friendship House liver and family lover, neighborhood lover, Travis Flood. Travis, what's up, big man? And tell me about that drum that's over your shoulder. I still say it's a drum.
It's actually not a drum. It's an air cleaner from a hot rod from back in the day, and it's been attached to an old gas can and is now a lamp. And so it's one of the crazy, amazing things that I have in my office. I'm actually the chair that I'm sitting in is actually the only piece of furniture or lighting thing that was not either built by me or one of my buddies. So it's pretty cool hangout.
That is totally cool. In full disclosure, I think Brandon Dyer actually made that one for you, right?
Yeah, that's where I got it.
Hey, Travis, tell us, how did you get to be Travis Flood? I mean, I think people in our community, you hit our community probably half a decade ago, and you came on as an individual who really stood out. You did that by answering the call, I noticed, with anybody who had a need. You showed up, you did the labor, you do the work, you're on the street. How did that happen, man? How did Travis Flood come into being?
Oh, man. So I grew up in South Central Oklahoma in Lindsay, America. And it is an oil field and farming community. And that comes with all the things that is. Those are both two industries where hard work is a pretty significant requirement for you to be successful in that. And came from my family is four generations before me were all oil field workers, and I'm the one that kind of broke the mold and went different. I worked in the oil field for my family for a while doing things, but in my mid-teens to early 20s, I kind of felt the call to go to the ministry, and that was a pretty significant break for the rest of the people in my crew. And so after lots of thought and prayer, I became a bivocational minister and then worked at that for a while. And then in 2005, really felt like I needed to expand who I was as a minister and make some significant commitments to learning and honing my craft and becoming the best I could be. And so I enrolled at OBU and, came to Shawnee, and like I said, and have been here on and off for, I was looking at it, 12 years. And there's been a couple of breaks in there where I went off and served in different places, but I've always had big shoulders and a big heart. And so that has allowed me to be who I needed to be for a lot of people. One of the things that I feel as comfortable in a room full of CEOs making $1 million deals as I would standing next to a homeless guy at a trash can fire. That's who I am. And it doesn't matter. I love everybody to the best of my ability all the way across the board, and have been able to been able to meet a lot of people and do a lot of good just by putting myself out there the best that I can. So that's kind of how I got to where I'm at and who I am, and just that the background of that, allows me to be what I get to be every day.
Well, and since the moment that I witnessed your work, I mean, I loved you, man. I thought, this guy gets it. And that description really tells me a lot. I did not realize until, years later, I always thought you were just a young buck, but you've got a lot of spirit, a lot of experience under your belt. There's a lot of things that you have done. But I have a particular question, because you came as an OBU student in 2005 with a different mentality than an 18-year-old. And I'd like to know what you saw in Shawnee then and experienced, and where you have come from them in a description of our city of 5 nations. Tell us as a newbie what you thought, and then now, after 12 years of really digging in, what your thinking is.
Right. So it was crazy. And I'm sure you've heard this just like anybody else has. When I first moved to Shawnee, I was in my 20s, had a wife and a 6-month-old baby. And so that's not typically your college student. I was very much your atypical college student, a little bit older, had a family already. And so my focus was on more than just education. It was, how do I take care of and protect my family? I was here maybe 35 seconds before somebody told me, do not live south of Independence and never go south of Main Street. And so, which was wild, because I've been places before, lived different places. I lived in Houston for a while, and Houston's a pretty tough part of the world. And so that automatically, as a father and as a husband who wanted to take care of his family, that automatically put a little bit of fear in my heart. And so it took a little bit of living here and doing life to realize that fear was it wasn't true, and that there are a lot of good places and a lot of good people in this town and in this city, and somewhere along the way, people had allowed that fear to really shape their idea of what Shawnee is and where we should be and where we should do life. but it's living here and doing life and meeting families and being part of this city has given me a new appreciation of what life is like, because here we have all ranges of families that are doing their best just to live and succeed, and it's exciting getting to be part of all their lives. I worked the first couple of years that I was here. I was a bivocational pastor as well as going to school. My wife was a stay-at-home mom for 9 years of our kids' lives, and I worked 3 jobs, went to school, and raised a family. The typical hardworking thing. But there were days that it didn't matter how hard I worked. Sometimes things come up short. And that's whenever the amazing friends and the amazing families that became part of my extended family were able to support me and love on me and help me make it through. And I promise you, I would not have made it through that stretch of my life without the amazing friends and the amazing family members that became part of my life through living here. And that has what has brought me back. I've followed the ministry 2 different times, and it's taken me away from Shawnee. And whenever those opportunities ended, it brought me back here because we knew this was a good place where there were good people and families that loved on us and wanted us to succeed. And that's exactly why whenever I got the call from Brandon, about 6 years ago, about this opportunity to come back to Shawnee and help with this crazy thing called community renewal, my heart leapt at that, because I knew that this was going to be an opportunity for me to love on people and to give back and do my best to help the city grow, just like this city helped me grow whenever I was a young man and needed it. And so that's been a huge part of why I'm here, and a huge part of why I work so hard to help people's lives get better here.
Travis, wonderful. And we're going to bring everybody back now. And I just wanted to share that you're watching We Are City of Five Nations podcast. And Travis shared something I'd like to tell you as an audience that is so important for all of us to realize, is that our words to people who come into our community really matter and really make an impact. And that's why getting to know the people all around our community that are different than you, that may make you uncomfortable, that may make you think things that you've heard through national or international or different broadcasts. We need to give a good testimony of our entire community. If somebody visits our community, or somebody visits or is coming here to stay for 4 years, and we say, hey, this part of our community you don't want to go to, I loved what Travis said, that was really just misplaced fear. Misplaced fear tears us apart. Whereas if we can come together and have conversations with open minds and open hearts, the caring that is within the vast majority of all of us in the City of Five Nations becomes more streamlined and becomes better for everyone to make our community stronger. And as we come back with everybody with us, Brandon, I know that I cannot as eloquently say how the togetherness is strong as you. I've heard you speak before about the community renewal mission and vision. And man, I just love it when you tell us. And would you tell us now about that from community renewal?
Well, yeah, I mean, I thanks for having us on again. I just appreciate getting to have some of my team on here. At first, I want to say our team is incredible, and I just can't believe the people I get to work with every day. And these are three great examples right here of the folks that really care about this community and work their tails off to make it, to really kind of erase that memory many of us grew up with of Shawnee being referred to as Shompton. We want to kind of erase that from people's memory. And Zoe sort of brought a vision to us too, to where Shawnee would be the best place to raise a family in the nation over the next 50 years, that we could make that so. And so I get to work with some great people, but our vision, our mission is really, really simple. I mean, all communities rest on a foundation of relationships. All of them do. And so we see lots of great things that go on economic development, which we love and are for. All of those things are wonderful and help build a great community, but the foundation is always people, always. And so when our communities are thriving, it's because those relationships are strong. And when our relationships begin to suffer and fragment and splinter, communities begin to suffer and can ultimately collapse. And it's happened over and over and over throughout our history. And so we really believe that if we want Shawnee to be the best place to raise a family, we've got to invest in personal relationships. And it takes all of us to do that. And if you're a person of faith, you recognize the words perhaps of Jesus that we must love one another. And so really what we're trying to do is take this idea of loving one another to scale in our community, really taking that to scale. And the good news about this is it's really something rather innate to us to begin with. We all have this capacity to care for other people, and we see it when disaster strikes. We see it. And this would be an example of the time that we're in right now. People really do care. They want to help. There is some fear right now because we don't always know how to approach things with this invisible virus, but people do care about other human beings. And we're not always the greatest at showing it and those sorts of things, but that common capacity that we all carry is what we are trying to unite people around this very simple message. And I'm glad you mentioned the fear that you and Travis both mentioned, that because that is a part of what we sort of war against, because fear leads to isolation, and isolation leads to mistrust, and mistrust tends to bring out the worst in all of us. And so we've got to, the way that we remedy fear is by getting to know the people that we live around that may live differently than us, that may think differently than us, that may have different opinions. And as I said earlier, our opinions matter, but people must be more important than our opinions if we're going to build the kind of world we want. And that, in a nutshell, really is what community renewal is about.
Well, tell us. I want you to just pick one on the screen, and we're going to go through all three real quick. But tell us the positions in which they hold and the purpose for that position on your team.
All right. Yeah. So I'll start with Travis because he's really a part of what we consider the neighbor to neighbor network. He works in the Kickapoo Park neighborhood. He, of course, lives there. Michael Phillips, who is another one of our community coordinators, is going to be moving into a house soon that we're in partnership with the Absentee Shawnee Tribe over on the corner of East Main and Bryan. But they work in the neighborhood. They live there. They work to rebuild trust in neighborhoods that we all need in every neighborhood. So Travis is what we call our friendship house coordinator, and he gets to do that very thing. And so I don't know if I'm bringing Travis in or if I'm just going around. All right, go ahead.
No. So Travis, I want to ask you a question. So let us in on what that means to be to you and to your family, to be able to be neighbors right there within that area of our community.
Yeah, so it's wild because I moved into a neighborhood on purpose where almost everybody here is trying to move out of. And the reason why is because when we looked around Shawnee and we started looking for neighborhoods to put our first friendship house in, there was some thought about different corners in town, different places, but we just kept coming back here to this big lot that was just in the random right here in the middle of Kickapoo Park, what used to be called Prince Hall, and we kept seeing neighbors and meeting people. And there's this giant tree on this lot. If you've ever been to the house, this giant tree was here, and we found out that in the crazy story, we found out that that tree is not native to Oklahoma. It's originally from the East Coast someplace, and somebody intentionally brought this here, probably based on how big it is in the land run days, and it just that message is kind of like intentionally being brought here and planted to bring beauty and shade to this area was something that we just kept being drawn to. And then after we had our first block party on this empty lot and got to meet the families, I knew that this was it. And that these were the families that I was going to get to come and love on and be part of their lives. And my family has always been from, like I said, when my daughter was born till today, has always kind of been part of our ministry. And as a family, that's what we've done. My wife works for Gateway now, but she is had different things throughout her life where she has always supported and worked with me as in whatever job I was doing. And she was kind of my right hand person and has always helped me to succeed and be the best that I can be. And so whenever we had the opportunity to move here, of course, there were some fears because it's a new neighborhood and there's a lot of stuff going on. But
because it's south of Independence, right, and
yeah. But what we quickly realized is that there are way more amazing, awesome folks that live in this neighborhood than anybody choosing to do bad things, and that some of the relationships that we've built in the year and a half that we've been here are just absolutely amazing. And I promise you, the crazy thing is, if anything were to go bad right now, I could pick up the phone and call any one of the houses that are touching mine, and they would come running with whatever they had. And that's something that a lot of families can't say. And I can say that in the middle of Prince Hall. And so I love that. And so that's something that we really helped us to be and do what we do.
Well, you're a perfect fit, you and Abby, as friendship house leaders and neighborhood leaders and helpers and just neighbors within a neighbor. And I can attest, because when I walked up to that friendship house, Travis, you were under a car fixing something, and there was Abby handing you the tools to make sure to get it done. Brandon, okay, how about these girls? Tell us about one of their positions and the purpose for it within your organization.
Yeah, so these amazing ladies here on our staff, and we have others too. I wish we had room to bring them all on, but what we have right now, I'll introduce Zoe Lozier, because Zoe, it's very important what she does. Travis works in neighborhoods. Zoe works with neighbors in neighborhoods, part of our Block Leader initiative, and does a fantastic job with that. Really, the backbone of community renewal are our block leaders, and Zoe gets to lead them and does a fantastic job.
Okay, so Zoe, talk about block leaders, because some of the numbers that you can throw around are really fabulous, but also you're doing a lot of creative things to keep people engaged online during these times too. I read a story about the bear driving around and being around, but then I also saw you doing a podcast on how to keep your neighborhood safer from your own home. So you're doing a lot of different things, but let's hear some of the numbers that you have for us on the We Care team.
Yes. So the We Care team has, I think, almost or over 4,000 folks. And those are just people connected and caring who have stood up and said, I'm a caring person, identified themselves as such, and are intentionally building relationships with the neighbors around them. The Block Leader program right now, we have, I think my most recent number was 158 block leaders across our community who are committed to not just building relationships with the 5 to 15 neighbors nearest to them, but gathering those neighbors together. And the value of that is I can know Brandon, I can know Travis, and I can know Mandy, and I can know Daniel, but until you come together in a space, it's not a community. So the block leaders are leading that initiative to block by block build community. We have seen, like Brandon said, I came to Community Renewal because I wanted to partner with an organization that would help Shawnee be the best place to raise a kid in the next 49 years now. That's the year 2068. That's the year I turn 80. And what they've seen in Shreveport, Louisiana is through these neighbor-to-neighbor connections, major crime has gone down in the roughest 5 areas of Shreveport by over 50%. And that's mind-blowing. And it's just by getting to know your neighbors. And when I heard those statistics, that was kind of it for me. I knew this is the place I wanted to be.
Well, we are very fortunate to have you working on the behalf of everyone within the community. And I encourage everyone to go to the Community Renewal website and look at those different things that are going on. One of the great resources that you guys are putting together, and I'm not sure which one is actually handling that, but the resource guide during this time, I mean, you can find out just about anything you need to find out informationally right there on that website. Thank you very much for your work.
Yeah.
And that brings us, Brandon, to Mandy Wells. Talk about Mandy and what she does and the importance of that.
Yeah, okay, so we've talked about our neighborhood initiatives so far, and now we'll talk just for a minute about our school initiatives too, because here's the thing. We all want a better world, but if we want a better world, we have to have better people. I've got to be the best person I can possibly be, just like you're doing your best, Daniel, to be the best person you can be. We've got to raise those people up. We've got to be involved in doing that. And our teachers are doing a bang-up job, working their tails off every day in school to teach them important skills that they need to learn, and doing their best along the way to teach them how to be the kind of people we need. But what Community Renewal has done is partnered with our schools now, all of Shawnee Public Schools, including Pleasant Grove and McLeod schools, to start our clubs, character initiatives in our schools. And I'll let Mandy talk more about that. But we've now got over 500 kids in our clubs in our schools. In addition to that, we've got our We Care campus that just launched this last year too. And Mandy's been an integral part of that and is really fantastic. And I'll let her tell more about those things.
Right. So like Brendan said, we have kids clubs all over the place. We're in all of the elementary schools, locker leaders at the middle school. We also get to do wolf time enrichment at the middle school, locker leaders at the high school, and then Travis does the club in McLeod. And so our character initiative, or the We Care Campus, is something that we created to help build something that the teachers, they do their very, very best, and they're rock stars at what they do. But sometimes the social and emotional learning is missed, the behaviors and things like that. So we came up with the We Care Campus initiative, and it's been amazing. So our word for the month at all of the schools is encouragement. And you can see the green turtle behind me, encouragement, and our bottom line is encouraging others helps me. And so we're going to be talking about that all month long. And we've started the In the Neighborhood series. And that was because we're in a very difficult situation and we all miss our kids terribly. The Kids Club leaders have put together individual videos where that the kids can't be with us and we miss them like crazy. And we know they miss us as well. But they can go to our YouTube channel and check out the different lessons and get to see their favorite leader. And we're hopeful that as things progress and continue to encourage one another and help kids to encourage their teachers and to encourage all the amazing things and all the amazing people in our community.
Yes, Mandy, thank you. And Zoe, can we catch a link from the website to get to
Sure.
those videos?
Yeah,
So,
I will add it in the live comments.
I could just throw that out there and I knew that you'd have it under control. I'm just glad I'm not in your office, Zoe. You know, this is much better. The five of us now, community. You named it. We are now community.
Yes, that's right.
Hey,
We are connected together.
Brandon, thank you very much for bringing your team to us today. We so appreciate you and the work of all of you guys. And I know this is 3 of the 10 in the office or so, or going throughout the community. But what a great example you 3 are of why the City of Five Nations is a success. And you guys, your hearts and your passion for what you do, and also everything that you bring to the table to get it done is very impressive. Thank you very, very much. And Brandon, I want to reiterate as well, we couldn't have a better leader. Born and raised, your wife born and raised, your kids born and raised, and you care, period. Man, it's evident. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Daniel, for having us on. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel.
We'll see
You've been
you
very
guys.
kind.
We'll see you guys again soon, and we'll see you.
All right.
You have been watching We Are City of Five Nations podcast and the series 30 Days of Community Building. And what a better example. I mean, those are individuals right here in the City of Five Nations working their tails off intentionally to try to make our world right here within our 5-10 mile radius a better place for all of us to live. I love that we are going to be the #1 community to raise a family in on Zoe's 80th birthday. What a wonderful gift. And I'm all in. I believe it. I believe it. And I think that we're going to make it with people just like all of us and all of you who are listening today. Remember, our words matter. How we describe different areas in our town has an impact. And a lot of times we're speaking out of our own ignorance if we are speaking negative about our own community. So let's keep it positive. And here in the City of Five Nations, remember, together, we are building community one season at a time. Looking forward to tomorrow with Rachel and Cammie. Come back and see us. Goodbye, everybody, for today.